My name's Ira, as the head of research and CTO at Outliers Fund. I think, for one, I don't think many venture capital firms have that title. So it's really interesting to be working at this intersection of novel research, but also building the tools that we use to do our research and investment. But I think personally, as a graduate of MIT, I've always had a pride to build my own tools. And I think a lot of us at Outliers share that. And especially because a lot of the tools we need, you actually can't buy them, even if we could. I think we'd still like to build them. And so I'm going to just give you a quick update on what we're building and how they're kind of driving both um, our deal flow and our investment decisions, and actually pretty soon how we interact with you as LPs. So first, why do we do this? I think actually one of the things that's really important for me and the team is that we have a single source of truth. So I know a lot of you probably work in organizations where you have documents in different forms, in different places, something in Google Drive, something in email, something in um, uh, an Excel spreadsheet. So we've actually worked really hard to just make sure that we have a single source of truth uh, database that is AI native, so that anytime one of our team members learns information and puts it into our repository, we all learn from it. Another great thing about the system is that it's really just auditable and transparent by default. There's no way to, sneak in um, different data for different people. Like what we see is what you see. And I think the other great thing about this is Outliers is a pretty small team. I think we run very lean and efficiently, and a lean and efficient team needs tools that work for us when we need them and very quickly. We don't have a lot of room for armies of staff. We are, for the most part, all of us very hands-on and doing the work ourselves. So architecturally, we do have this source of truth that we're called the Nexus, and it does a lot of things for us. It helps us maintain our knowledge base for deal flows, and all the companies we're looking at, all of the valuations, and all of the news that we're actually scraping all the time using agents. And using it to kind of flag important updates that might affect how we make decisions about how we move to make deals with certain companies. We're actually using the same data to inform our LP portal. So, whenever we're adjusting our valuations for, say, a portfolio company, that shows up right away in what the LPs see. We're also using this to manage potential deals, so things we haven't invested in yet. And as soon as we're putting these opportunities together, uh, you know, we can kind of share those with our LPs. And of course, we use it a ton for internal ops, things like accounting, reporting, creating research publications for internal and external consumption. So we've actually, since January, when AI really got started, we've always been devoted. I think the last LP partners meeting, I talked about a workshop where we took a whole week off as a team to learn AI coding together, and we were all kind of multi-agent coding together. So we've actually built quite a suite of tools that I'm sure would have cost us a lot of money if we bought the subscription from Salesforce or something like that. But these are all things we've built ourselves. Um, so in the time I have, I'm going to go through three live demos. So these are kind of the three newest tools we're excited about. That one of them is very helpful for us, the deal flow and valuation models. And we think that the two other tools, the LP portal and the deal room, are going to be actually pretty relevant to you sitting there in Taipei and also online. So what do I mean by the pipeline for deal flows and our valuations? Well, first of all, what I'm showing you here has been redacted. We're not actually showing you the real names of all the companies, but we are showing you kind of the flavor of the data that we are actually keeping internally. So whenever we have a company um, come into our pipeline, we actually have a fairly structured due diligence process that we developed, and I'm proud to say we've been sticking to. It's a 4 to 5 week process where a company goes from screening in the first week, where we just make sure it's a fit for the thesis of any given fund or vehicle. And then we really grill it through these 4 verticals of business, finances, technology, and legal and compliance. And then we go through terms negotiation and closing over the course of 5 weeks. So each step along the way is a chance for us to learn something about that company that would eventually affect whether we invest. So that status is tracked in our pipeline. So like I said, each of these rows is a company that we're evaluating. I've redacted all the names here. But we are, constantly updating while we're reviewing their valuations, the potential capital we could deploy, the certainty we have around the valuations and things like that. We're also gathering, all the stories about the founders and keeping that up to date as well in the description. You're noticing that each of these companies has a flag here called primary or not assessed, or sometimes secondary. Those actually refer to their government contract status. So one thing that's really important to us, which we introduced at the last LP meeting, is tracking to what extent any of our companies, and this is especially important in the scientific fund for all of the space companies we're evaluating, is in their growth cycle, are they successfully applying for and getting government grants in the form of awards or grants as a primary contractor or even a secondary contractor? So what do I mean by grants? So in the top of this visualization, which we showed last time, are all the government agencies. For instance, NASA here is a big one. Each line is actually a grant, a flow of money from a government agency to a company. So this node here is, see, Boeing. I think a lot of you know Boeing. So Boeing gets a ton of money from NASA. And then that's the green line. But the red lines are whenever Boeing takes a portion of that money and subcontracts it out to a smaller space company. So we told you last meeting, we're really interested in those companies downstream, even from Boeing, because they might be growing and be the next, big Boeing themselves. So that's what I mean when I say primary and secondary. But whether you're getting primary, secondary, it's a great indicator of, your traction with the government, because a lot of space companies, before they transition to receiving private money, they've demonstrated they can be very successful managing public money. So that's where these valuations come in. So we're essentially building this valuation engine. So in addition to the traditional ways you would decide the value of a company, to really set the value of a space company, you really need to incorporate to what extent they're using those government grants. So again, these are all names redacted. I'm just giving you kind of their subsectors. These are all the companies we're vetting and all of the approximate valuations that we internally derive. And we're not being told these valuations. These are valuations we're estimating and calculating ourselves. And we like to see if they match what the companies are proposing in the terms negotiation. So another tool I'd like to show you. So that was an internal tool. So this is going to be a tool we're excited to be rolling out soon. This is for you. This is the LP portal. We want to have a way for you to see the same information we're seeing when we see it. So up to now, you've been getting these quarterly reports that are fairly thorough, PDFs and emails from Poseidon and the team. But we want to also make it so there's a dashboard you can log in at any time and see what the status is. We want to show you your capital accounts and things like that. This is an example of the portal. Again, I've made up a imaginary LP here. This isn't anybody real in the room. And the numbers are imaginary too, but this is what you would see with your numbers plugged in if you were to invest. You would see a dashboard, you would see your most recent quarterly reports that you can download, each fund or vehicle that you're invested in. You would see the status of your commitments and what you've paid in and what's left to be paid in. And you would also see a summary of all the companies that you're invested in through your funds. So this particular imaginary person is invested in both the scientific fund and the intelligence fund. So they're exposed to both space companies and the intelligence companies like Paradromics and HARC. There's a helpful glossary if you're not, super savvy on the financial terms. We can, explain what TDPI is here right here for you. But for each fund, we also get quite specific. We tell you your net asset value, whether it's gained or not, your specific commitment capital status for that. We also tell you about the fund as a whole, like what was the total amount put into the fund, and how it's doing overall. You can see evidence whenever you make a transaction. We're actually linking this directly to our bank statement, so we know exactly when you've transmitted money, and we verify it here. So everything is cross-referenced. You can see the portfolio detail of the fund. You can see the financials of the fund, including not just the investments, but the cash flows, the management fees, and things like that. You can also download any document, not just a quarterly report, but capital call notices, wiring instructions, the subscription agreements, and things like that you've signed. And of course, just a friendly reminder of how to contact all of us. All right, last demo really quick is this deal room we're developing. So whenever we have an opportunity to invest in, say, a company through an SPV or something like that, we want to have a way to quickly share that with you and keep the terms up to date so they're clear. This is actually relevant to our speakers later today, potentially, for a lot of you. So whenever an SPV opens up, we're going to keep those up to date on our SPV page, and we'll, after the LP session, be rolling out access to this on request. So this is going to be having the terms for all of the companies that we're actively collaborating with. They've passed, or are passing due diligence, and we're actively helping them raise together with their next round. All right, I'm going to wrap up. I know we're on time. I'm going to start to hand over the mic for Justin pretty soon. So if Justin from Volta, if you'd like to start getting ready. But anyway, happy to show you some tools. And again, we like to build stuff in-house, and we like to run it ourselves. And even though we're just a venture capital firm, not like our founders who are actually building things, I am proud that we get to build stuff too. All right, thanks. Justin, take it away.
Thank you, Ira.